we're back from
Oh, are you leading this one?
I think he should.
No, of course he is.
He knows the guest.
I'm joking with
He knows the
Of
guest a
course he's
little
leading.
bit better than us.
Yeah, I was trying to do that intentional, but we'll start over since you didn't.
We're back from the show floor here at IPC Apex 2025, and we've got a familiar face. For those of you who maybe don't recognize him, it's the original Elias. So this is Elias Sr. from Metal Etch Services, and happens to be my dad. So without further ado, welcome, and we're hoping to talk a little stencils finally.
Yes, I know a thing or two about those.
Yeah, Elias gets really bored every time we're talking about pick and place or reflow ovens or whatever, and he's like, "I thought we started this podcast to talk about stencils."
Right.
You know?
That's what he told me.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that part.
I had to sell it somehow.
Yes.
So, Senior, why don't you give us a little of your background and kind of when you entered the industry and maybe a bit of how you've seen it evolve and change over the course of your, 35-year career?
41.
Oh, wow.
41, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I got into the industry in 1984. Actually, I cut my first stencil right around the time he was born. I kind of got into it as something to do until I figured out what I wanted to do with my life.
All right.
Obviously, I needed some money fast because I had a kid. Different world back then. You know, stencils were made via chemical etching. Board guys know what that is.
What was like the smallest aperture size you were working with back then? Like
my fist through
0805?
No, that was 0805s were scary. I remember when 0805s, 0402s, everybody was panicking when a BGA came around. Oh my God, what do we do? Or a QFN.
Sure.
I've seen the industry change obviously a lot. The stencils have had to grow with the industry. Components getting smaller, thicknesses getting smaller.
And more densely
more
packed
density, and then larger components. Some components that still have to be through hole. We have to deal with that. But really, the industry's changed along with it. Laser equipment, materials. If you think about what really made a huge impact in our industry, it was a better type of foil.
Sure.
Not just regular stainless steel.
Fine grain.
The what?
Fine grain.
Fine grain. Yes. And of course, the laser is just really coming into where they needed to be.
Yeah, with stencil foil, it traditionally it would distort really bad.
Yes.
Like you get a lot of thermal distortion. So if you had a real dense pattern, BGAs or just a lot of passives in a real tight area, it would come off the laser and look like a potato chip or an oil can, right? It was just very distorted. So the more modern materials that we're using these days are stress relieved, so they don't fall victim to those kind of effects. And it's paramount because if you have a stencil that doesn't lay flat against your substrate,
It's a problem.
blown gaskets, misregistration, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's cheating almost. They have it a lot easier than I did.
Has tension changed at all?
Okay, that's a good question because now you get pre-tension foils, right? You get them; they're already
Yeah, but
in
we
the frame.
did it before ourselves. I mean,
But you used to do it, right?
yeah, we always stretched our own. Matter of fact, it was one of the fights that I had with Elias early on because
One of them.
he did win, only because he showed me the money. But I always thought
That'll usually do it.
Yeah, the secret was us applying our knowledge to it. Tension is kind of a crazy thing because if you look anywhere, I don't think it's written down anywhere as law, or maybe it is now.
IPC
Is it
75,
a part of a standard? or-
IPC 7525 makes, I think, exactly 2 mentions about tension, and there's no values associated to it. So
Yeah.
it's anything anyone says about tension is almost entirely arbitrary.
Okay.
because I remember one time he
It's just
talked about,
completely anecdotal to their.
we were just having like a random conversation. He talks about the trampoline effect of a stencil, and I was like, "What are you talking about, trampoline?"
Yeah.
Like,
What-
but he started explaining it, right? It's big.
But that's more so that it just kind of lays flat as taught. But I mean, you're talking about contact printing. I also came from the thick film screen industry, which is off contact printing. You want snap off, so that it rolls away from the substrate. In a stencil, it's not the case. It's just flat. It's
Yeah,
just
on the thick
contact to
film, you're
contact.
actually kind of like creating a V shape
You have to.
as it's going
Right.
along, and it's
Rolling.
releasing back the second that squeegee's passed.
Exactly. So that's kind of an interesting point that somebody should discuss in more detail.
Yeah, there's much work to be done in terms of studying and actually understanding the effects of tension on print quality, and maybe they're there, or maybe they're less than folks know.
My question is the mill change as well, like the stencil thickness. And it seems kind of like paste goes along with it too, where like everyone was type 3 and they were type 4. Now some people are using type 5, right?
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the mill thickness. So there, thankfully, you guys have customers that demand 40,000 of the craziest, smallest apertures ever.
Yes.
So you guys have this experience. So that's what I love it. I can call him up. And I had like this one really, really small. It was like 01005 pads. I was printing on it.
Sure.
And he was like, use the 2.3. And I can tell you why. Because when we ran it on 2, this is their AR. And when we ran it at 3, this is their AR. And it's just weird because, I mean, we're talking mils.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
right?
tiny.
2.3 versus 2.0 is not that big. You'd never be able to tell with your eye.
Oh, no chance.
Right?
No, but you know what's interesting and what's great for us? We don't know everything about the
Right.
stencil industry. We know a lot, but we see everything. I mean, we see things that are brand new. We see when we get a call, it's because there's a problem at our level. Somebody has an issue that we need to solve. And when we solve it, guess what? We just got a huge education.
Right.
But and it makes a big difference. Aspect ratio. While there is mention of that in IPC, I mean, there's a lot that can affect that, both
That's why I
negatively
love
and positively.
working with you guys, because like I call him up when we're working on a new job, and we will work together. Like we'll actually talk about specific components and what goes there, and
Sure.
historically what we've seen and what we've experienced. And every time that I give him more historical data, he does a better job at providing a tailor-made solution that's going to get good results. And I mean, he's excited because every time it happens, he asks, "Hey, did you run it?" And it's just like, "Yeah, improved yield. No more quality issues." It's just it helps in such a big way to have somebody who can.
What's really crazy? There was a time when I would field a lot of those questions. There was a day that it happened when our Mexican facility asked a question via WhatsApp, and I think I may have hit send at the same time he did, and you would have thought that it was the same person answering the question. And nowadays, because he's gotten so much more involved, a lot thanks to what you guys are doing, I gotta stay on my game so he doesn't pass me up. But no, I mean it's very important for us. We sell our products, but it's also the service.
It's
You
all
know,
the service.
There's no such thing as a cookie cutter stencil.
No.
I mean, for $140, that's what you're gonna get. But
150.
It's custom. Every one of them is custom. Yeah, we don't want to talk about it. I kind of like you, but let's not talk about price.
Listen,
we
were
rely
upfront with each other. Everything was on there. But I think that's part of the reason why this podcast works the best is because when we were before it even started, us three were having conversations about process problems we were having
all the time.
And
Yes.
he would talk about from the stencil side, right? And he would ask us questions that him and I would never even think of. And then he would talk about, well, what about from the placement side, right? Or the printing side. And then I would talk about what about from the board side, right? So we have all of our niche in there. And it's like, okay, well, we need to communicate because this guy's got the answer. This guy's got the answer. I got the answer, right? So it's like there's solutions out there, but it's just not known.
You know what's crazy? Before Apex, there was NEPCON.
Yeah.
I remember being in my late 20s, maybe early 30s, and somebody came up and asked me, he says, hey, if there was something in the industry that you'd like to happen, what would that be? And I remember saying to him, God, if the designers and the manufacturers and the print guys, the paste guys and the stencil guys could all get together and talk
Right.
because
Yeah.
everybody makes each other's lives miserable.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
That's why, when I first heard about it, I'm like, all right, cool. But, you guys have something going. Obviously, it's working or you wouldn't be sitting here. But it's important. There's a lot that everybody has in their own. You stay in your lane, but
Yeah.
then nobody learns.
Right.
And it's super important.
There has to be that collaboration because, I mean, as a stencil manufacturer, I have no screen printers in my facility. You guys have both been there. There's no screen printers. So here we are making this product for a very specific application, but we're not practitioners. So this theory that lives in our head and these concepts that, and data-driven approaches, but we rely on you to close that loop. I rely on Daniel to let me know how a strategy worked, or Sean to say, hey, this is what's going on. How can you help me fix it? And every conversation that is had between myself or Senior and a contract manufacturer and OEM, just keep adding to that database, and it'll help everybody. So we've just got to keep talking and getting folks from all spaces, all disciplines, all sectors of our industry talking together.
For me, it builds my confidence. I almost use him as like what we talked about with CTAC today.
Yeah.
Like I will literally send him a board and say, do you think I can manufacture this? And then he'll either be like, you got this, Bubba. This is no problem for you. Or he'll be like, nah, I don't
Well, I
know.
send him stuff all that time too, because I deal mostly with the Mexican customers.
Right.
It's a different world down there.
Yeah.
And sometimes just so he gets a kick out of it, and sometimes just so I can share my pain. I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? You know? But no, it's super important.
Yeah.
Super important to have this collaboration. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for making the trek up here, Senior,
Yes.
and pleasure to have you on. And it means a lot to know that you support what we're doing here, and I know that the words that you've given us and encouragement are genuine. So, thanks for being with us, and have a great show.
No, thanks for having me, and I'm extremely proud of you guys. You guys have done great.
Thank you so much.
He's looking at us.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Expects it from me.
That's great. Thank you.